On your left is the Sony X90J, on your right is last year's Sony X690 or X900H. In this video, I'm going to show you 8 areas where the Sony X90J is superior to the X900H and 2.5 areas where it's worse. Keep watching. The Sony X90J was capable of delivering higher peak brightness than the X900H. On my 55-inch review samples, I measured a peak brightness of around 830 nits on a 10% window after calibration on the X90J and 650 nits on the X900H, so the difference is almost 200 nits. The higher peak brightness on the X90J allowed it to render HDR with more impact and also retain more specular highlight detail, as you can see from the scene in Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, where the bright fluorescent lights just look more impactful and clearer on the X90J. 2. The Sony X90J also had superior tone mapping that worked well to retain more specular highlight detail in 4000 nit content, as well as paint the colors in a more saturated manner. And if I use this clip from Batman vs Superman, note that I had to slow it down or else it will be over all too soon. You can see that the bright lightning flashes are just clearer on the Sony X90J courtesy of the superior tone mapping that presumably is granted by the new BRAVIA XR processor. 3. The Sony X90J is also capable of rendering deeper blacks than the X900H or XH90. Now, if I disable local dimming on both TVs using this paused scene from Gravity, you can see that the outer portions on both TVs are actually brighter and reveal more shadow detail than the center. This is because of the gamma shift caused by the narrow viewing angle of the VA type LCD panels on both displays. But if we enable local dimming in their optimized settings on both TVs, hopefully you can appreciate the deeper blacks generally on the Sony X90J. Note that due to the limited dynamic range of my camera, I cannot fully capture the shadow detail, but in real life, let me assure you that shadow detail remain clear on both sets. If we switch to another dark scene in SDR, this is the last Harry Potter film, you can again hopefully appreciate the deeper blacks on the Sony X90J. Now, this advantage also carries through to HDR, for example, in this dark sequence from Pan, where the blacks on the XH90 or X900H was shallower. 4. The Sony X90J also offered more calibration controls than the X900H. For example, if we go into the picture menu, you can see that once we activate the Kalman for BRAVIA app, the Sony X90J can unlock 2 further picture presets, namely Custom for Pro 1 and Custom for Pro 2. Whereas, these additional picture presets are not available on the Sony XH90 or X900H. Furthermore, the Kalman for BRAVIA app will also unlock the 20-point white balance controls on the X90J, while the X900H is still restricted to a 10-point white balance system. And last but not least, there is an additional color management system or CMS on the X90J, which is not available on the XH90 or X900H at all. The combination of these additional picture affecting settings will allow the X90J to be calibrated to more accurate colors and gamma tracking than what the XH90 or X900H will be able to achieve. 5. Upscaling was generally sharper on the Sony X90J thanks to the new BRAVIA XR processor, particularly with 1080i broadcast content, where the X90J is able to retrieve more texture and detail compared with the XH90. However, for the purists out there, you may notice that in some scenes with a lot of fine detail, the additional processing performed by BRAVIA XR can go a bit overboard, and this has prompted us to lower the sharpness value to minimum, even though sharpness 50 is neutral on both TVs. Nevertheless, most viewers will probably prefer the sharper upscaling delivered by the Sony X90J, helped by the BRAVIA XR processor. 6. Gradation was smoother on the X90J. If we look at this near black quantization test pattern developed by Stacy Spears of Spears and Munsell fame, you can see that the gradation on the X900H was quite stair-stepped, whereas it is much smoother on the X90J. And if we display another of Mr. Spear's test pattern, you can see that especially on the 10-bit CR portion, the gradients appeared smoother on the X90J compared to the X900H. In addition, the Sony X90J also offers a smooth gradation decontouring filter, which is not present on the X900H. So let's say if we disable smooth gradation on the X90J, you can already see that the native gradation was already superior in this scene from The Martian to the X900H. But let's say if you are watching some low bitrate content, you can enable smooth gradation to apply a decontouring filter, allowing the X90J to present a cleaner and smoother image than what the X90 or X900H is ever capable of. 7. The Sony X90J has a new intermediate film mode low setting, which works to reduce the aggressiveness of the film mode interlacing so as to avoid microstutter in certain broadcast content with mixed edits. This film mode low setting is not present on the X900H. 8. The Sony X90J is able to resolve full 4K 120Hz resolution, whereas on the X90 or X900H, as we have pointed out last year, the vertical resolution at 4K 120Hz was still halved. And the reason why the X90J was able to resolve full 4K 120Hz resolution despite both TVs using the same MediaTek MT5895 SoC is because the BRAVIA XR processor on the X90J actually has an additional companion chip which works to relieve some of the workload. However, because of the presence of this companion chip, I think it is also suffering from some sort of HDMI bandwidth limitation, and therefore 4K 120Hz content in HDR actually exhibited more posterisation than what was presented on the X900H. Not only on test patterns, here we're using the Display HDR app from a PC, but also in actual HDR games, for instance in Dirt 5 from the PS5 in high frame rate mode, where you can see more striping along the skies on the X90J compared to the X900H. The second aspect where the X90J fared worse than the X900H was that in certain scenes there would be more blooming on the X90J, and this is caused by its higher peak brightness and also its more aggressive local dimming algorithm, which worked to deepen the blacks. And because of the limited number of local dimming zones on both sets, if you try to achieve inkier blacks, there will be less room for tapering from bright areas to dark areas, and therefore you may see more blooming around bright objects on the X90J compared with the X900H. Last but not least, the Sony X90J had a lower white color gamut coverage than the X900H. On paper, now in real-world content, we barely see the effects of this, and in fact, because of the new BRAVIA XR processor, bright colorful highlights actually looked more saturated on the X90J in certain scenes, so we only gave half a point advantage to the X900H in this department. This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. With more and more people staying home these days, Netflix is continuing to cap the bitrate of certain shows, especially in Europe, which will cause the picture to look softer with more compression artifacts such as macro blocking, pixelation, and noise in dark scenes. What if there's a way to access Netflix servers in another country where streaming bitrate is not capped? This is where a VPN comes in. Surfshark allows you to stream content from another country without needing you to be physically there, so you can watch Netflix in higher bit rates and better picture quality. You can also get more content that's not available in your region, perhaps the US Netflix library, which contains more movie titles. For less than the price of a Big Mac per month, you can use Surfshark on as many devices as you want in your household, all at the same time. There's 24/7 live customer support, a 30-day money-back guarantee, and even instructions on how to set up the VPN on your LG or Samsung Smart TV. And for a limited time only, if you use promo code HDTVTest, you'll get 83% off and 3 extra months free. So sign up today and give Surfshark a try. I'll put the link in the YouTube description below. Thanks again for your support. Let's sum up. And because some of you want me to make your purchase decision for you, since you trust me so much, I'm going to spell it out for you. I'm going to make it really easy for you to choose between these two. Between the Sony X90J and the X900H, if budget is not a concern, I would always go with the Sony X90J. Its new BRAVIA XR processor, which consists of the MediaTek MT5895 SoC, together with an additional companion chip, directly fixes many of the shortcomings on the X900H. For example, if you go with the Sony X90J, you will get higher peak brightness, you will get superior tone mapping, you will get deeper black levels, you will get smoother gradation, you will also get, sharper upscaling. In addition, you will also get more granular calibration controls, allowing for superior color accuracy. You will also get full 4K 120Hz resolution, finally, and last but not least, you will get an intermediate film mode low setting on the Sony X90J, which may avoid microstutter in broadcast content with mixed edits. Now, this is not to say that the Sony X900H is without its strengths. I think it has a handful of areas where it is superior to the X90J. For example, the posterisation in 4K 120Hz HDR mode on the X90J, which is, in my opinion, caused by the lower HDMI bandwidth on the companion chip, is not present on the Sony X900H or XH90. The Sony X90J is also prone to exhibiting more blooming in certain scenes because its peak brightness is higher, and also it has a more aggressive local dimming, which may try to make blacks inkier, and therefore this may exacerbate the blooming phenomenon, which is unavoidable because of the limited number of local dimming zones Sony has implemented on these two sets. I mean, these are 55-inch models and they have 24 local dimming zones each. And even though Sony's local dimming algorithm is best in class, with 24 zones, you generally can't avoid blooming in certain scenes. I think in terms of input lag, the Sony XH90 or X900H has a slightly lower input lag both at 60 FPS and also 120 FPS because of the lack of the companion chip. But again, I think we are talking only 1 to 3 milliseconds, and I don't think it is really significant in the grand scheme of things. So overall picture quality, I genuinely prefer the Sony X90J. However, I think if you already own a Sony XH90 or X900H, I don't think it is worth the financial hit to sell your XH90 and upgrade to the X90J. I don't think it is worth it at all. I think the Sony XH90 or X900H is still a solid television, but the X90J is the latest iteration of mid-range 4K LED LCD TV from the Japanese brand, and it just does many things better, in terms of the HDR and also just the blacks. Now, I think, originally I wasn't actually planning to do this comparison video because, I was planning to just wrap the whole thing up in my review of the Sony X90J with some comparisons, but I think I messed up the audio on that video, so I do apologize for that if you were anticipating that video. I'm not going to redo that video because it takes too much time. But I think the reason why I started tinkering with the audio is because as they say, I like trying new things. It is just an experimentation that failed quite badly, and it is not going to happen again. But the reason why I'm starting to experiment with various stuff is because I see some other channels with videos which are less technical but getting more views than my comparison videos. For example, for all my TV comparison videos, I have to put in so much work to make them so technical. So for example, I have to do perceptual matching, I have to calibrate them individually for all these different modes, SDR, HDR, game mode, Dolby Vision, and things like that. And sometimes I even rope in a reference broadcast monitor for a true reference comparison. And I think those take a lot of time, and sometimes it is quite disheartening to see my comparison videos getting so much less views and traffic than some other comparison videos out there, which are first of all done earlier, but also because they don't need to actually put in so much time in terms of the technical comparisons. They can actually push out the videos faster, and and they may be more easy to understand for the common consumer as well. And sometimes I just have to stop and wonder, am I going too deep? And that is the thing that is bugging me, and therefore I'm trying out different things, and I'm not sure where the direction of this channel is going. I think, obviously I can continue doing what I'm doing, putting out technical TV reviews, putting out technical TV comparisons, but will that grow the channel as fast as I would want to? I think, it is a question that I have to actually explore myself. But in terms of messing with the audio, I do apologize for the experimentation, and I definitely won't be messing with the speed again of my sound. Before I wrap up this video, I would like to thank Richard Sounds Manchester for supporting this channel and for their help with this video. I think, if you're buying a new TV, please consider buying from them. To watch more of our comparison videos involving Sony LED LCD TVs, please click here for our playlist, and I'll see you in the next video.